Okay, so welcome to another live stream. Now, this one, basically done quite a bit of progress on the Excel, so the overview for each province. So the province overview map, which incorporates the province creation, and then it comes pre-populated with most of the good stuff. And then when the geopolitical player, say for example a licensee baron, creates a province, that it will be populated with the names of the locations and such. And then anytime that there's a reference to that particular province, then it will be referring to the overview. So the overview will have all of the data that's going to be available to be used in geopolitical. It'll also be the location where information is stored. So every NPC that lives in that barony, for example, in that province, will have their records kept there. Now, if a person wants to be a player character and take over an existing NPC that lives in a barony, there's no reason why they can't just leave. They're all free people of Valini, and they can leave whenever they feel like it. They're not obliged to stick around and stay. If they choose to reside in a province, they will be obligated to fulfill their month of service as a militia for whoever the baron of that province is. So just to keep that in mind, that if they do want to resettle somewhere else, then they will then be under the command structure of that other baron. Anyway, so getting into it, I'm going to just keep working away on Excel. Now, I'm just going to zoom out. Now, I'm pretty sure I showed this off before, so I'm going to explain what I'm doing, and then I'll just keep going with it. Now, we've got the 4 different imperial factions, and when it comes to the geopolitical tournament map, all of these different 4 factions will be in there. Now, when it comes to playing this as a live campaign, one of these corners, for example, will remain, and the other corners will be left blank. So effectively, when you're playing on your own with your own province, it's going to be stripped back. So each of these geopolitical players will be flitting between the 4 live provinces, and as there's four provinces with 4 different barons. Now, as the campaign progresses and other groups of 4 provinces are started up, that there'll be another set of 4 grandmasters and such. So I'm making it so that there's a territorial aspect to, say, for example, the guild function and the high priest function and such, so that their territory is 4 provinces, 4 baronies. So when it comes to divvying up the loot amongst them, it's shared equitably and equally, and they can be represented in different provinces. They can attend different events. They can represent the people in their guilds. They can represent the people who are of their faith and function that way. Now, the mercenaries are making it so that there's a starting number of mercenary group factions. However, as with all the other ones, if people want to create their own, then they can slot into some of the existing. Now, I'm just going to go into here. I just realized that all the icons that I'd sourced are still there. So I'm just going to delete those icons just quickly. So initially what I had in mind was I was going to try and source an icon to suit each guild. Now, there are icons that are available for commercial use, all over the place. But it seems to me that the first priority is to focus on and be in plain language, so there's no confusion about it. So I want to make it so that the icons that are used in the geopolitical live stream will be represented by these. Now, each of these can be moved around. Now, this is in Microsoft Excel that I'm picking this up and moving it around, but it will also be possible for these icons to be directly copied and then pasted into paint.net. And my intention is that when we're moving geopolitical forces around, that I'll move the icon to follow the eraser that I use. Now, if they remain in the field, then they remain in the field. If they are at a town, then it will go to a town. It may be that we've got a stack of them in the same location and such. Some of them, so for example, pro Samurai rebels, well, this particular group faction are not signatories to the Fellini Peace Accords, so they're outlaw. Even if you are pro Samurai, even if your character is pro Samurai, the pro Samurai rebels are outside the law. They're actually there's a price on their head, for example. Doesn't stop them from operating. Really, if you're going to try and capture a group of rebels, then it's a little bit risky to do so. But anyway, I've got a little sword, and then I've typed in the name that it represents. So hopefully that's going to be adequate for representation. Now, another thing I could do, which I've been considering doing, and I might just give it a go now, for example, is this. So, no, that's not what I wanted to do. So, alright, now. So, Assassin's Guild Grand Master, for example. And then down here, we have a serial number. Now, if I copy that, and then up here, okay, I think that it just did it. Okay, all I did was hit return, and it came up with the serial number. So it may be that this is the best way to do it. Unfortunately, I can't auto-populate, because what I've created here is an icon. Now, the icon, this number here it's not part of Excel. It's a text or a graphic. So it doesn't come up it won't come up nicely. It won't auto-populate. So it may be that when I start using these icons, that I will then insert. Okay, so when I populate it, it will come up with these numbers, and these numbers will continue to refresh, and the numbers will change right up until the time where I copy and paste values only. At that point, these numbers will basically be fixed in stone, and they'll remain the same number. Now, for example, I'm just going to F9, and you can see that the numbers have changed, so have all the aliases for the characters and such, but you can see this number has not changed. So just keeping in mind, there will be some manual entry that I'm going to have to do, and it might be that I just wait until we go into a live environment, and then the party number will remain associated with that with that specific Assassin's Guild Grand Master indefinitely. Now, it is also possible that I can do this. I could basically do, I think, copy, and then up here, right, now it's not perfect, but you can see that it did the job, which is that it's pasted it, but it's stripped out the it stripped out the font. So Vinter Hand is what I wanted, and there we go. So that's not too shabby either. So by leaving it as a generic, and then when we get into specific provinces and the live environment and things like that, it may be that yes, I have to do that kind of copy and paste into the icon, and once it's in the icon, then it's fixed in stone. I will never have to do that again once that's done. But as I said, I'm just going to strip that back to what it was before and leave it as a blank one. All right, so that's that. So I just wanted to make sure that I've done that properly. Okay, so again, a bit of manual data entry and a bit of mucking around that I'm going to be doing on the live stream. Yes, I was sitting here doing it myself, and I was thinking, I'm going to have to do a live stream today at some point. And so I then realized, well, hang on, this is something that I can do that's quite, funky, and I can show how I've been manipulating Microsoft Excel for these purposes. So this is Pro Caesars 2 Rebels. Now I'm going to have to change the color of the. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Alright, so changing the color. There we go. So Caesar 2 colors are that. Now, for some reason, well, actually, what I did was, there we go. Outline, no outline. Okay, so I'm not sure if you picked up on any of that. So when I tried to change the colors and things, I changed it so that the outline of this text box then became an outline. So I didn't want that, and so there we go. So that's that. Now we're going to continue on with the Guild Grandmasters and such. So just going to keep going. Okay, so we've got up here, we've got Councillors Guild, and that's an Elemental Bidens one. So moving along. Okay. And it's just as simple as doing that. And we just check that it moves. So all I'm doing is I've just typed that in, and I'm just wanting to make sure that it's actually still grouped. So what I've done is I've grouped each of the text box and the icon box. Okay. This is not perfect. So the other question was that in the live environment, when we're doing when people are sitting around a table or free-forming and moving around and playing out the geopolitical moves in costume and in their character roles, how it's going to work in that case will be that there will be a live board, and there will be the deck of cards. All these cards can be printed out and then supplied, and then in terms of representing the this icon, it could be instead a miniature, so people could purchase miniatures and they could paint them up in their own colours. Now, why did that do that? Okay, there we go. In their own colours, and use the. They could use the. Okay, mercenary group. There we go. Yes, they could use a miniature on the board to represent their faction, their group faction. So if that's a people can choose their colours and things like this and stick to it, and then they could do their costume layouts and things like this. Now I'm not sure why I chose the Greek alphabet, so but I have. I think that it's a serviceable solution to what to call them initially. For the moment, alpha, beta, gamma, etc., is serviceable, but it's not ideal. So I think that once people want to take on some of these roles, that they can choose to change it once off. Hopefully that can be achieved without it interfering with the storyline and things like this. I mean, if it's too late, it's too late. And it may be that nobody wants to take on a group faction called the Delta Mercenary Group. But the thing is that's the only thing I can really do. The only thing I can really do right now is to just get it done, and then tweak it later. Okay, so I'm just moving around the board, filling it in. So background is filled with, well, we're going to try. That did one. I'm going to undo that. And then I'm just going to go fill. There we go. That did it a lot easier. Now I'm going to leave the gold border in there. It's not hurting anyone. And just continue on. So Epsilon Pro Valini Independence. So yes, it's a little bit time consuming, but look, I just got to keep in mind that I'm not going to have to do this again and again. This is just, I need to set this up and then work with what I've got and then make changes as necessary. Now this says that Epsilon Pro Valini, so we'll try to I don't think it's going to fit. Alright, there's nothing I can do about that except for I can drop down to 10 point, and even with 10 point it doesn't like it. Okay, what can we do? Alright, well, okay, that might work. Okay, so that's the epsilon ones. So let me have a look and see what I did wrong over here. Rebel group leader. That's Pi. So that's outlaw group. Omicron. Lambda. Kappa. Theta. Right, pro Chacopops. Pro Valini.
We're getting gas.
Out. Yes. Oh dear. So, alright, what have I done here? So, pro-independence rebel group. Zeta. So this one here is pro Chacopop. Okay, so Valini independence, that's what happened. So I've made it so that the independence rebels have a have a Greek pro-independence. Okay, so pro Samrajay. Okay, so it doesn't have a... No, it doesn't have one. So pro Samrajay doesn't. Neither does pro Caesar 2. Okay, that makes sense now. So the reason it hasn't got a Greek phonetic to it is because, yeah, there's more pro-Valini independence rebels than there are pro-faction. So, okay, so that makes sense now. Alright, so... Alright, so where was I? Before I thought that I made a mistake. So I haven't made a mistake. All I've done is forgotten the reasons why. So... Alright, so there's that. So mercenary group. Alright, and also that's another thing as well. So I forgot to gamma outlaw mercenary group. So I think that I must have forgotten to type that in, which then caused the ruckus. Alright, so there's another mercenary group there, so we'll just grab that, nick it, and make sure going along for Caesar 2. Okay, Delta Mercenary. Okay, Epsilon Provolini. That's not what I wanted. I'm going to zoom out again and look a little bit closer. So that's an outlaw one there. Alright, that's what I wanted. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. Delete that. Paste that. Move it to here. I can grab that. And then I can go into here. Well, no, it's not going to quite work that way. Alright. So Zeta Outlaw Mercenary Group. Alright. Now I'm calling it Rebels rather than Independence, Rebel Group. It's just a bit of shorthand. Really, I think that it's getting a bit pedantic to be that specific. I think it's pretty obvious that they're rebels. Okay, moving along. I'm going to zoom in because I know that you guys can't see as well when it's not in the center. I'm not zoomed in to this extreme. Not really extreme, but anyway. Just getting the job done. Yeah, so I would have liked to have had used icons, but it's really not necessary. Pro Chakra Pop. Pro Chakra Pop. Where's Pro Chakra Pop? Right. Copy that all the way down the bottom. Sorry if I'm making people nauseous. Okay, Pro Chakra Pop Rebels. And we're going to change the... Now, what did I do wrong last time? Change the outline to... And we did the same thing. Does the job. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so hunters and leather workers. Oops. And that's the other way around. Okay, there we go. So hunters and leather workers. Now, of course, helping you guys out with a little bit of visibility means that I can't navigate as easily. So I just got to try and remember where I put things so that I can zoom around. Okay, so theta and mercenaries. Anyway, you're going to get the idea where I'm going with it. So hang on, that's outlaws. I've skipped some. There we go. And this is iota. Alright, so anyway, I'll zoom back out and try to show where I'm at. So that's the way that it's looking at the moment. So all these icons, they can be moved around during the game. I've created a whole random selection of failures. So I'm not sure if I mentioned it previously, but what's going on there? Sorry. Okay, we've got an error. So why there is an error? Let's just have a look. 154, 153. So, okay, so I'm just going to, oops, cancel that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to trying to select all. Alright, sorry. Okay. You got to be careful when you do that. So let's just have a look and do that again. So copy that, copy, and then you're supposed to exit out of it, and then you can then select all, find replace, go in there, and I'm going to change that to 3. Replace all, and 575 replacements. So what I've got is 575 of these cards. These are all like failure cards, and effectively what I'm trying to achieve is a random distribution of failures, and it'll be covered over with a black layer, and in the live stream environment it'll be copied and then pasted. It'll set these results in stone, so it'll be paste values kind of thing into paint.net, and then when I want to reveal a result, I'll just basically grab the eraser tool, go to the black layer, the black over failures layer, and then I'll just dot with the eraser tool, and then hopefully that will erase like an area on, like it might erase that gold there, and then I'll basically open up that and then that will be the result of that particular failure. So if, for example, the group of 20 plus maybe 9 modifiers, that's 29, and they come up against a creature that is like 35, then that means they're going to have to process through 6 failures. And so it may be that of the 6 failures, the first one may be near miss, in which case they can avoid the remaining 5 failure cards and escape from that situation. It could be that that the beta party 4th adventurer is critically wounded, but then they have to continue to process each of the failure cards in turn. So there's 500 and 500 and something cards. So we should be able to process through quite a bit before I need to replenish it. If I have to replenish it, no big deal. I come back into Microsoft Excel. I then F9 this particular sheet, and then copy and then paste over the top of the old one, and then just resume. So from a live stream point of view, it's relatively easy. From in the live environment where people are playing this at a quarterly, for example, it'll be a matter of having a deck of these cards, and that they get drawn and shuffled and drawn and shuffled and things like that. So it's, the other thing is that in terms of trying to pull a story together about what happened, some of these cards are very generic, and so how is it that some of these minor wounds and things like that occurred? Well, it may be, if there's a bard present, that the bard is the one who gets to tell the story. So they can basically tell a story that is hopefully exciting, and they can publish that, and all those things can happen. So anyway, that's that. I think that we talked about the ruins and things like this. So I've made it so this automatically populates the name of the town and the village and the hamlet and the farm. Now, if there's if one of these towns is in ruins, then it's applicable. As in, I basically will process through from this one here, first encounter, second encounter, third encounter, fourth encounter, etc., etc. As the adventurers, as the group, goes into each cell in turn, when they're taking back the territory, will result in an encounter. So some of these are more challenging than others. So it's going to be a bit hit and miss, and as I've previously explained, that it may result in fighting withdrawals, it may result in casualties and things like that. The only difference is that with casualties, like if there's it may be that they've been taken by the liches, in which case it may be that they're like a hostage, an unfed, unwatered hostage. So there's a certain time period where it may be that if you want to save that adventurer's life, that you need to ramp up and push a little bit harder in order to free them from being captured and taken prisoner by the undead. Anyways, moving on, we've got wilderness encounters. So in the wilderness encounters, I've basically put all the creatures and all the different effects that can occur, and then what ended up, I found that I had a fair bit of space for left over. So what I've done is I've put a scattering of coin, and the scattering of coin will be representing just odds and ends, bits and pieces, stuff that's of value that is encountered along the way, and it then can be just turned into cold hard cash. So in a live environment, when there's adventurers, there's going to be it might be that there's a rusted breastplate, for example, is found. Now, the rusted breastplate may or may not have value. It can be repaired, etc., etc. It may be an item that just can be traded in for like 5 silver pieces. It might be that it's worth nothing, but the item card will go with it. So when you do live events, there may be like a deck of loot that is found, but in the geopolitical, haven't got time for that. So I'm going to represent some of these random items that are found along the way in terms of simply receiving a promissory note. So so that there's no need for me to micromanage that. So anyway, I filled in the spaces in between with things like that. Now, I was considering that I need to put in refugees and things like that, but I think I'm going to have a separate deck for refugees. I don't think that it's necessary for them to be in this deck. They can be in a separate deck, and I'll make a completely separate refugee deck somewhere else. So when refugees are drawn, they'll come from that location. Anyway, I'm not sure if anything like that, any of that made sense. So geopolitical movement, we've already talked about. Oh no, we haven't actually. So again, it's a random distribution, and so there's unopposed movements. There's things like loot. So I've actually incorporated to draw a loot card, so you can actually find random loot in addition. So anyway, so there's things like refugees encountered and things like this. So that does mess up your strategy if you wanting to move fast through a location. But if you encounter refugees, you are obliged to escort them to safety. Anyway, so that seems to be working okay. I can't see any errors. So that's good. All right, and I think that's it. So we've talked about people and places and how each town, village, hamlet and farm has a population. So for example, this fortified town starts off the campaign with 60 people living there. Now, it's extremely underpopulated when it's got a capacity for 240 individuals living there. So, even though it's only got 60 people living in it, it's earning the Baron 400,000 silver pieces in tax revenue. So that's so they're in a position to basically make quite a bit of tax income by settling people into these towns. So when you find settlers and you're escorting them to places like this. And so if people find the title deeds to a place, well, then they receive that same amount in rent. And at the same time, the Baron, whose province it is, received that amount in tax. So it is a win-win. These title deeds are fairly important to find and hold on to. So anyway, I think that'll do it for the moment. I've just got to keep working on the geopolitical players, and as you see, I'm halfway there. So I'll just keep working away, and hopefully it's going to be working out very shortly. I'll do some testing, and then we'll try getting into doing at least the tournament version of it a couple of times before we go live with the campaign on the 1st of July. All right. If there's further information that people want to find out, then they can certainly either send me a message and I'll hopefully be able to reply to it during the live stream, or they can also look at renegadelarp.com and there'll be lots of information there as well. All right.